I work security at a multinational tech office in Singapore. Last month, during a lunch break, an American product manager walked past our open floor meeting pods, where the Netherlands team was holding their quarterly review. She stopped cold, stared through the glass walls, then found me at the front desk. She said the Dutch director was discussing individual performance metrics and salary benchmarks in front of the entire department and asked if that was allowed. I confirmed it's standard practice here. She said in America we'd call HR immediately because compensation discussions should be confidential, and that kind of radical transparency creates hostile work environments. I mentioned the Dutch office routinely posts org charts with salary bands on their internal wiki. She said that's insane, and you can't just tell everyone what people earn because it breeds resentment. The Dutch director overheard and invited her to join. She declined. My cousin runs a bakery in Copenhagen. An American consultant attended their weekly all-hands, where the owner presented quarterly financials, including everyone's raises. The consultant said displaying compensation data is inappropriate, and in the States, we'd terminate managers for this. My cousin explained Danish law mandates wage transparency. I manage an Airbnb in Stockholm. American guests seemed confused when they heard me address the building's owner by his first name during breakfast. One asked if Magnus was my friend. I said he's the owner. He said I should show respect by using Mr. Lindstrom. I explained in Sweden, everyone, including CEOs, gets called by their first name because titles create barriers. He said that's unprofessional. And in America, we maintain hierarchy through formal address. I teach at an international business school in Rotterdam. During a negotiation simulation, an American MBA student approached me privately after class and said she felt uncomfortable because a German student directly told her that her proposal had fundamental flaws during the group presentation, and that kind of public criticism would be considered bullying in American corporate culture. I replayed the video. The German student had said her revenue assumptions were unrealistic and the cost structure wouldn't scale, then asked what data supported her projections. The American student said the German student should have praised something first and that feedback should always be private and constructive. I mentioned Germans consider directness respectful because it doesn't waste time. She said it's aggressive communication and softening criticism is basic professionalism. The German student later told me he thought Americans never say what they mean, and he's tired of decoding vague phrases like, "let's circle back," or "that's an interesting perspective." My brother manages quality control at a textile factory outside Berlin. An American consultant spent 3 weeks observing, then started his exit presentation with 10 minutes, praising the facility before suggesting improvements. My brother stopped him and asked him to skip to the problems since that's what they paid for. The consultant looked offended and said establishing positives first is standard practice. My brother explained Germans prefer efficiency, and if you hired someone to find problems, they should list them. The consultant said that approach feels harsh, and American culture emphasizes balancing negative feedback with positive reinforcement to maintain morale. Later, he told HR the German management style was overly blunt. The factory director reviewed the complaint and responded that the consultant received exactly what he was hired to provide. I work at a logistics company in Malmö. An American client visited our headquarters and seemed surprised when our junior logistics coordinator interrupted the CEO during a strategy meeting to point out a flaw in the expansion timeline. After the meeting, she asked me privately if that employee would face consequences for contradicting the boss in public. I explained Swedish workplace culture encourages everyone to contribute regardless of rank because good ideas can come from anywhere. She said in American companies speaking up like that would be seen as insubordinate and you need to respect the chain of command. I mentioned our CEO specifically asks for pushback because he doesn't want yes-men. She said that sounds nice in theory but undermines authority, and in practice you'd create chaos if junior employees felt powered to challenge executives openly. Our coordinator overheard and asked why American companies hire smart people then tell them to stay quiet. The client said there's appropriate channels for feedback in public. disagreement damages leadership credibility. My sister coordinates HR at a manufacturing plant in Aarhus. An American engineer scheduled a private meeting 3 weeks after relocating. My sister assumed it was serious. Instead, he wanted to report that his team lead corrected his technical drawings. During yesterday's design review in front of everyone, my sister asked if the corrections were accurate. He confirmed, but said public correction was inappropriate, and feedback should happen privately. My sister explained Danish culture values transparency, and if there's an error, the whole team needs to learn from it. He said that's humiliating, and in America, we protect dignity through private criticism. The team lead was confused why this was a problem, since pointing out technical errors during review is the entire purpose. The engineer transferred back to Boston 6 months later. I coordinate projects at a software startup in Amsterdam. An American VP joined through an acquisition and immediately requested private offices for senior leadership. I explained we use open-plan seating, and even founders sit at shared desks. He said executives need private space for confidential discussions, and visible hierarchy helps employees understand reporting structures. I walked him through our floor. The CEO sits between 2 junior developers. He said that sends confusing signals, and in American culture, office size communicates level. I mentioned the CEO chose this to stay accessible. The VP said you can't command respect sitting in a cubicle next to interns. He tried booking conference rooms for regular work, but employees complained he monopolized shared spaces. He left for a competitor with traditional hierarchies. 6 months later, my uncle owns a consulting firm in Oslo. An American consultant kept scheduling one-on-one coffee meetings with department heads to discuss project ideas. After his 5th request, my uncle asked why he needed private meetings instead of bringing ideas to team sessions. The consultant explained American culture requires socializing ideas privately with stakeholders before presentations to build support. My uncle said that sounds like politics and Norwegian culture values, open discussion where everyone hears the same information. The consultant insisted pre-meetings are strategic and going in cold risks public rejection. My uncle explained that's the point. Bad ideas should face scrutiny. The consultant said that wastes everyone's time on unvetted ideas. He kept scheduling private meetings anyway. Other employees questioned why he was having side conversations. I run operations for a food distribution company in Gothenburg. An American sales director joined, and during her first week scheduled individual meetings with each department head to understand who holds informal power beyond the org chart. I asked what she meant. She explained American companies have hidden hierarchies, and someone usually has the CEO's ear. I said our structure is straightforward and department heads have the authority their titles indicate. She seemed skeptical. 3 months in, she was still searching for influence networks that didn't exist. During a budget meeting, she directed her proposal to Ward, who she assumed was the power player, instead of the actual budget committee chair. The committee chair had to redirect her multiple times. I manage warehouse operations in Utrecht. An American logistics consultant seemed bothered by morning briefings, where workers questioned management decisions about workflow changes. On his 3rd day, he said those meetings are unproductive because employees should trust management's expertise. I explained Dutch culture encourages questioning because workers spot practical problems management overlooks. He said there's a difference between feedback and insubordination in these sessions. Feel like the inmates running the asylum? I mentioned that phrase is why we value bottom-up input. He said American philosophy emphasizes clear authority and constant questioning slows everything down. One worker prevented a major routing error by catching a flaw in his delivery schedule during a briefing. He admitted the worker was right, but maintained the process felt inefficient. I work reception at a corporate office in Copenhagen. An American department head scheduled a meeting with our CEO and seemed nervous beforehand. He asked me to confirm proper protocol for addressing the CEO. I told him to just use Henrik's first name. He asked if there's a formal greeting or title. I repeated everyone calls him Henrik. He said, in America, you'd use Mr. Christensen, especially in your first executive meeting, and using first names suggests presumption. During the meeting, I heard him awkwardly alternate between Henrik and Mr. Christensen, while our CEO looked confused. After he told me he couldn't shake the feeling he was being too casual, my brother-in-law manages it. Infrastructure at a pharmaceutical. Command in Basel. An American project manager filed a hostile work environment complaint within 2 weeks. The complaint cited that a senior developer told him his project timeline was unrealistic during a planning meeting in front of 8 colleagues. HR investigated and concluded that was standard technical feedback. The American PM said public criticism is unprofessional, and in the States we'd require sensitivity training. My brother-in-law explained. Swiss culture values directness on technical matters because indirect communication causes costly errors. The PM said there's ways to be direct without being harsh. My brother-in-law reviewed the recording. The developer had said, "Your timeline assumes perfect conditions, and we need buffer for testing. What's your risk mitigation plan?" The PM interpreted that as a personal attack. I work admin at a shipping company in Hamburg. Our CEO held a quarterly town hall where an intern asked why executive salaries are so much higher than worker salaries. An American executive from our New York office looked horrified. After he told our CEO that was disrespectful and in America, an intern would be terminated for questioning executive compensation publicly. Our CEO said it's a legitimate question about resource allocation. The American executive said there's appropriate channels and ambushing leadership undermines authority. Our CEO explained German culture values open dialogue, and employees have the right to understand how their company operates. The American executive said public confrontation about sensitive topics creates toxic culture. The intern got praised by other employees for asking what everyone wanted to know. I coordinate training at a biotech firm in Helsinki. An American team lead struggled with our feedback culture. During a project retrospective, a Finnish developer told him directly that his micromanagement was slowing the team down. The American ended the meeting early and told HR this was insubordination. HR asked him to clarify. He said an employee publicly criticized his leadership in front of his team, and that's unacceptable. HR confirmed direct critique of leadership is standard in Finnish culture. He said it felt like an attack, and in America, you'd never tell your manager they're wrong in a group setting. HR suggested adjusting expectations since psychological safety means people voice concerns without fear. He requested coaching on handling aggressive team members. The coach explained Finns aren't aggressive, they're transparent, and micromanagement wasn't an insult, but a behavioral observation. He left within a year citing cultural incompatibility. I manage corporate partnerships at a global consulting firm in Brussels. Last quarter, an American partner visited European offices and compiled a report on concerning practices. His primary concern was excessive transparency in salary discussions, performance reviews, and planning. He recommended confidentiality protocols, hierarchical boundaries, and training European managers on professional distance. European leadership filed his recommendations. Under cultural differences, noting American corporate culture isn't universal. The American partner called that dismissive in evidence. We don't take standards seriously. Our Brussels director replied different cultures define professionalism differently in refusing to impose American norms. Doesn't mean lacking standards. Director asked if he'd considered Americans could learn from European transparency. He said absolutely not and walked out. 6 months later, he requested a transfer to Amsterdam. Apparently, working with Dutch clients showed him direct communication was more efficient. He still thinks we're too casual with executives, though.